What?
Subscribe.
Subscribe. We'll highlight all that. Don't you worry.
Just
But of
saying,
course,
you gotta remind people. You want to get
Subscribe right now.
subscribe.
subscribe. Of course.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
In my opinion, I just don't think that that Nick Sirianni is the most handsome man on earth. But I guess he's a decent head coach, right? Ben?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show.
All right, Jesus Christ. Fine. You know what? Don't let me cold open a show for funsies. All right. Fine. We'll cut this from the run. We'll mark that shit. You suck. Hello, friends. Welcome in to Get in the Hole, live from the underground, streaming on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you can get a hold of your friends here. From Get in the Hole, Ben, me, and Ethan joining you on another big time Monday in the sports world, day after the Super Bowl. The Eagles have won. We're going to mention them in a little bit, but before we get into anything, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, as well as bring you through what we'll be discussing today on the show. Of course, live from the underground, bringing you all the news, betting tips, and analysis from across the PGA, LPGA, Korn Ferry, and LIV Golf tours. A lot of news this week in the cycle across all leagues, but we must start with a shout out to our awesome partners over at 47 Brand. Like I mentioned, the Philadelphia Eagles, they've just won the Super Bowl. So what are you going to do next? You're going to go to 47 Brand and join in on the party with limited edition championship headwear, as well as a variety of Eagles branded apparel, including their new Stony Clover Lane and 47 Super Bowl 59 capsule collection that dropped last week in lieu of the big game in New Orleans. You can use our link in the description to shop for everything related to the big game and the championship Philadelphia Eagles and get free shipping on all orders with our partners at 47 Brand. Again, free shipping on all orders when you use our link in the description, and get ready for the big party on Broad Street, Valentine's Day, February 14th. Get it in on the action at 47brand.com. We leave the show off today as Ben. First of all, Ben, hi. Welcome back. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? I'm fantastic. I'm doing great.
So the news recently dropped about Aaron Rodgers not coming back to the Jets. What's your opinion on that before you start off?
You know, I'm pretty sad about it. I feel bad for Aaron. I do. I think a lot of the things that have happened, so a lot of them are his fault, for sure. Like wanting his buddy Nat Hackett as the OC, wanting Lazard, wanting Randall Cobb. He's had such a storied career, though, and it looks like it could potentially be over. Some people, such as Colin Cowherd, are saying that he could go to Vegas or Indy. I think Indy would be a good spot for him, but at the end of the day, because I am a big Aaron fan, and one of the reasons I'm such a fan of him, not only is he like one of the most gifted throwers of the football ever. I mean, you could just watch it all day. He's also just nothing bothered. You know, he doesn't care what people think about him, and I really do believe that that's a skill that is developed over time. I think because everyone really wants to be liked, and he has admitted that. Of course, everyone wants to be liked. No one wants to be labeled crazy things like some of the things he's been labeled. But he doesn't care what people think about him, and I think that that's such a powerful trait to have. And he marches to the beat of his own drum. He asks, difficult questions, but I do think that some of the things that happened in New York and at the end in Green Bay were a lot of his fault too. And so I am sad to see it. I'm sad to see it go down this way. I thought that they should have just brought him back because the roster is pretty good. He played well the last half of the season. He did. He played pretty well. But at the end of the day, I think the personality, some people say that he can be moody. And when you're working with a coach who's coming from such a culture-driven organization now in Detroit, never would have said that 5 years ago, but now they are, it would never mesh. And Aaron Glenn seems like a no BS kind of guy. And so I do feel for Aaron, though, because I never like to see legends go out on a sour note.
Yeah.
And I do believe that that's kind of where it's going. So, if he ever wants to tee it up, just follow me on Instagram, Aaron. We can go tee it up. And, I'd love to, pick your brain on certain things. And, before anyone says anything, not like ayahuasca. That's not something I'm interested in. I bet Steve's brain went there immediately. But no, I think Aaron's a very interesting individual, and there are certain things, some life things that I think he understands and things that he does that I think are very valuable. So, yeah.
Lots of good points. Actually, it's funny. So in my group chat every morning, Johnny will send us like inspirational quotes, and his quote today was, "Confidence is not quote they will like me. Confidence is quote I'll be fine if they don't." And you might mistake a lot of that for arrogance too. Like, oh, like I don't care what people think about me. I'm just gonna do my thing. And you could very well paint Aaron Rodgers is a very arrogant guy. You can even paint someone like Bryce Harper as a very arrogant guy who exudes confidence and thinks he's the best player in the world. I mean, he has a right to be. Both of them, they're two great examples of what really talented athletes can be. And it's funny because we talked about this probably a month or two ago with Tiger about how like guys don't know when to go out on top. Like Tom Brady, it happened to him. Tiger sort of the wheels are falling off. Now kind of Aaron Rodgers falls into the same boat. It would also be hilarious to see him go to Minnesota to complete the Favre arc. But a lot of what you're saying actually translates well into golf and our first topic of the day. And thank you for painting that picture, because when you look at the guys who jumped to LIV Golf, right, it's the same sort of thing. Like people mistook their jump for greed and arrogance and the desire to break away from the norms, and they get outcasted. But now we've reached a point where everybody has kind of been misinformed and painted this wrong picture of a lot of these players. And by that I mean the guys who are actually still relevant in the golf world, not the older guys who are ending their careers or on the tail end. And as that segues into golf and our first topic of the day, it's fascinating how things have changed over a 3-year span from when LIV started 3-4 years ago to where we are now. We'll talk more about it in a bit, but with the incoming presidency of Donald Trump as of a couple of weeks ago in January, the potential, according to I think a few people in the space, there is now a official framework done and proposals that have been sent to the DOJ for approval to determine the PIF PGA merger. But what recently came out today, and the more breaking news of the day, the RNA and the USGA both came out with guidances for LIV Golf players to qualify for the Open and US Open. Some of the qualifications, according to Bob Harrig, include the USGA is granting the highest non-exempt player in the top 3 of LIV points as of May 19th, which will be their 4th event of the year. They're planning to extend that to 2 spots in 2026 with the live 26 leader and the 2025 individual champion getting in. There's also potential for allowing 10 spots in final qualifying, the qualifying groups for LIV Golf players who previously were ineligible. And then the Telegraph reported that the RNA will grant access to the top 5 LIV point earners not already qualified by the week of the Open. So we now have, finally, in the post-Norman era, a opportunity for LIV golfers outside of performing well in major championships and in the Asian circuit or wherever else they can try and ravage up WGR points, can now have direct access from what they do on their own tour in order to get them in to 2 of the 4 majors, the PGA Championship to be determined, and of course the Masters will always be by invitation only. They said it last year. If we think you're good enough to play at the Masters, we will invite you. That happened to Joaquin Neiman on a special exemption, considering he was one of the best players from South America. That was the exact reasoning they gave. How important is this, not only just for LIV Golf as a whole, but because now we're possibly getting this merger? is the reunification of golf really that important at this point? Now that we know that LIV golfers are going to not only get certain accesses granted from the merger, A, but B, now they don't have to rely on reunification in order to get into majors over the next 3, 4, however many years. Now that a lot of their statuses are starting to come up.
I never thought that. Before I speak, you guys can hear me, right? I always get nervous, okay, with the Wi-Fi. So I never thought that a reunification was necessary. And I say that because the PGA Tour, it was always a monopoly, right? And I believe that the tour became complacent with some of the things and how players were getting paid. And ever since that happened, the tour had to find ways to pony up more money. And I will never fault an athlete for going and taking more money because you don't know how long your shelf life is. Things happen. And so I don't necessarily think it's that important. And then when you add this into the framework with the RNA and now the USGA for their respective majors that they run, I don't really think it's all that necessary personally. I don't. I think that there are a lot more questions than answers that we have right now, even if there was a reunification. What are we going to do about the guys on LIV who already signed those contracts? Because we know there are guys on tour who want those guys who signed those guaranteed money contracts to give the money back. I don't know. I'd have a really hard time giving back $55 million, Steve. I'm sure you would too. And you in the corner. Yeah, I'm sure you'd have a hard time giving it back too, right? Like,
yeah.
I think that there are a lot more questions. Like, okay, great. Yeah, golf is reunified again. Okay. We have a lot more questions though still. Like, how is this going to work? And so I personally believe that while it is very likely that it happens, and it's pretty clear that our president has put it on the forefront of his to-do list, not that I really agree with it being on the forefront of his to-do list, but I don't think it's that necessary. I don't, because now this move by the USGA and RNA, it gives LIV actually more credibility anyway.
Exactly.
Because they're saying, you guys, your sole league tour, whatever you want to call it, you guys are now able to qualify into our event if you play well, which we have deemed the RNA is like, if you're top 5 by the time our championship rolls around and you haven't automatically got in, you're in. You know, USGA, it's top 3, you're in. I really do believe that LIV actually gains credibility. And to be quite honest, they've actually gained, I know that the numbers, and we're going to talk about this later, for their first event of the year, the viewership numbers weren't great. I understand that. But the fact that they have a deal with Fox now, and the fact that the USGA and RNA have identified them as a legitimate organization, essentially, by allowing their players to automatically qualify via points, LIV has actually gained credibility in the past month. And look, it's baby steps, but it's steps nonetheless. And so if they continue to gain credibility, do we really need a reunification of golf? I think it makes golf way more interesting when there's another tour that guys can go to. I think it makes it way more interesting, at least for us to talk about, because then you have LIV free agency anyway. Like, that's actually kind of a lot of fun. It's fun to speculate who might leave. You and I have been speculating that Hovland might leave for the past 2 years. Yep. Initially, you and I were speculating that Ricky might leave when LIV first became a thing. And so for people like us, that speculation is actually kind of a lot of fun, and it gives us a lot to talk about. But it's also good for the consumer as well, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like the average Joe who, you know, plays golf once a week, he's like, oh my gosh, like hypothetically, like, oh my gosh, Ricky Fowler, like going to LIV, like, oh my gosh, he's my favorite player. Like, that would be so cool. I think anytime you have more parity in golf, I think it's better. And I think that's what LIV has brought. It's made everyone a hell of a lot more money anyway. So the guys on tour that decided to stay, they should say thank you to Greg Norman and everyone else who's running the show over there, because everyone's gotten a hell of a lot more rich. But that's just my opinion at the end of the day. And I feel like you'd agree with most of that.
Yeah, so I think the fascinating part about this not only is finally we're getting up to a point where LIV's gaining credibility. I think from the jump we already knew that LIV golfers were still good enough, right? Like, and again, I'm going to beat the dead horse for the umpteenth time, right? Like the Graham McDowells and the Lee Westwoods and the Ian Poulters were never the names that you were going to have on display week in and week out for LIV Golf. You just needed a base of guys to go over and allow for the rest to follow suit. Jon Rahm, it doesn't matter if he plays 7 events, 12 events, 3 rounds, 4 rounds. He's still a top 10 golfer in the world, right? He still trains the same. He still practices the same. When he has weeks off, he's still going out to play. It might not be competitive rounds, but like the same thing with Bryson DeChambeau. Bryson shows up to the Masters last year and shoots 8 under with these brand new golf clubs that he's had for a week, and everyone's like, "Oh, the clubs are magical." No, it's just fucking good at golf. Like the guy played 5 events leading up to the Masters. He didn't play for 3.5 weeks leading up to the Masters. He still was the first round leader. He was in contention the whole week. Like Patrick Reed almost won. Phil Mickelson finished second 2 years ago. Like the pool here of guys, there's still quality out in the landmine of the landmine of the LIV golf field. Like you could still find a diamond at any given week. Look, we're gonna play at Torrey Pines this week for the Genesis Invitational. Jake Knapp could have a stellar week. Anybody can have a stellar week. You might not play for 3.5 weeks. We'll talk about him later. Will Chandler made his 3rd PGA Tour start ever, and he finished top 5. He beat Scotty Scheffler by 6 strokes. The guy Monday queued into the event. So it doesn't matter if you don't play a competitive round for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or every other week or the week prior. You could still play really well. And in LIV Golf has shown that even though it's 3 rounds, it's a little bit less and it's more lax and it's louder. If anything, you're dealing with more distractions when you're playing on a loud golf course. You can't focus in on yourself. And they clearly have enough juice and effort amongst their top players, Joaquin Niemann, Jon Rahm, Bryson, Brooks, and so on, to be able to give you a competitive product that deems necessary to give them points. And you know what? The argument could very well be made, oh, what if Dean Burmeister is top 5 in points leading up to the U.S. Open? Fine, he deserves it. Like, what's so bad about Dean making the field of the U.S. Open than like Gary Woodland, who, granted, maybe a bad example because he had brain surgery, but like if Gary Woodland doesn't play well for 6 months, but he has a 5-year exemption for winning the U.S. Open years ago, like you could argue, okay, cool, he has the exemption, but he's been playing like crap. Why can't someone else have a spot? If you really wanted the best golfers in the world, like we should be talking about other things here. So I think that they're all more than deserving to be able to get spots into the U.S. Open, into the Open. Joaquin Niemann got invites to the PGA Championship and the Masters. Mito Pereira got an invite 2 years ago to the Masters. There are guys getting invites because not just because they're the best players in their respective country, but they're good enough to be in a 70-man field with the 70 best players in the world. In terms of the reunification, and I don't want to talk too much into this because I've already ranted enough, but while reunification I think would be great, I think LIV Golf will always be a separate entity to the PGA Tour to keep more eyes on the product. At the end of the day, the PGA PIF merger is more going to be the Saudis diversifying their money portfolio and just putting money in the PGA Tour to get a return back, because they already know they're not making any real money off of LIV Golf anyways. The Fox deal is going to give them some monetary money back, but in the amount of money they spend to try and hype up the league and advertising and everything else, it's going to be a loss leader for years to come. Think about it. Like Spotify just had their first profitable year ever. They've been around since 2006. Like companies don't just become profitable in 1 year. And you and I know that as business guys. So at the end of the day, LIV will always be its own thing. So at some point we need to just kind of acknowledge that they are a legitimate source and need enough respect to get into majors, because if they can't get into majors and we're developing a system now where you're never going to see LIV Golf players, but the PIF wants to invest into the PGA Tour. If we're going to have any sort of reunification, whether it's LIV golfers playing in PGA Tour events again, we don't even need that if we can at least now give a legitimacy and more eyes on a new product very similar to what we have with TGL.
The thing is, I think the problem that LIV ran into initially, and it's not really even their problem, but I just think that most golf snobs sat there and they said they felt like it wasn't serious.
Yeah.
3 rounds instead of 4, guys in shorts, guaranteed contracts, blasting music, and shotguns. Teams, like, it was so different. And I think something that is so different, it really makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Like, the product of golf had gotten stale. And I thought it was so odd that so many people wanted it to stay that way rather than having something that was new and, quite frankly, kind of innovative, because it really did it. Because it was innovative, actually, because it changed the game of golf forever. The game of golf would be exactly the same had LIV hadn't happened 3 or 4 years ago. And so I just think, because they were almost deemed as not a serious tour, and I found it so hilarious that people were like, well, if you give golfers guaranteed money, they're not going to practice as hard, or they're not going to work out as hard. It's like, okay, every single sport with the exception of tennis has guaranteed money. And those guys, for the most part, still work just as hard. Maybe not Albert Hainsworth when he was in Washington, but most of those guys work incredibly hard still. Like, seriously, like, they work incredibly hard. Why would golfers be any different? It's not going, like, with the exception of like maybe Dustin Johnson, like, but most of those, like, I think that LIV just ran into something because they were just deemed as a not so serious thing because it was so different and it made so many people so uncomfortable that now they're finally gaining some credibility.
I equally don't think that LIV was ready for all of the mass movement they were trying to make. They didn't plan it well enough. I think the team's aspect came together too quick. They tried to put together a international broadcasting team with like Arlo White calling games, and like the guy calls soccer. He doesn't call like DP World Tour golf. Like they should have stuck to the basics and went with people who know their stuff the best. The product itself on course, whether or not it was good or bad in the first year, that's to be seen. But we always say it, the product value is really good. You're watching every single shot. I watched this past week at the Waste Management outside of Thursday where Kay calls me. She goes, I got an ad. The Waste Management is on Disney Plus. I go, what the fuck, really? Only to find out, obviously, ABC owns, Disney owns ABC, which owns ESPN. But that's the only reason why. But the fact that on a Thursday when I'm working from home at 4:00, I have to tune into Disney Plus, and I can't go on like CBS or NBC or ESPN to watch golf is like, and not to mention, I turn it on. Who's in the lead in round 1? Wyndham Clark. I saw 2 shots of Wyndham Clark. Like a bunker shot from the green and like a shot from like the rocks. I'm like, okay. Where at least with LIV Golf, I'm watching every single shot, every player, shotgun start. It's different. It's innovative. It's fascinating. But I think it was ineffectively put into motion. And I think a lot of that falls on Greg Norman just trying to push the product out and get things going too early. They didn't have time to actually solidify themselves and create a unit where they can get a niche involved. The TGL, despite the fact that a hurricane essentially wiped out their facility for a full year, the hype was still there for a full year. You knew what the teams were like. They had videos describing, hey, this is what we're going for. Now look, they're 5 weeks in. There's still a lot to work on. We watched this past Monday, and I know Ethan watched because we're talking about it. Tommy Fleetwood hit a shot. The tracker caught the divot he made and not the ball. So the ball went all of 20 feet, and he goes, the fuck just happened? Like, nightmare fuel for TGL. But I feel like no one cared about it. But if something happened on LIV Golf where they like blacked out or something, or some shit happened, would have been all over it. And I said this years ago, LIV Golf and the PGA and the purists, it got very politicized. It got very Republican Democratic in terms of like who you support, and you're an a-hole if you don't support the one side that you think is right. And we'll talk about it in a second. Brandel Chamblee was one of those like lead guys who for years carried this narrative of LIV sucks, this, that, and the other thing. How Jon Rahm can't compete at the Masters because he wore shorts on golf courses. Like, give me a fucking break. Now all of a sudden he golfs with Donald Trump and he goes, oh, my tone's changed. The PIF is more of a partner to what the future of golf is. I have a whole different set of issues with that, and I'll talk about him in 2 minutes. But those purists, like you said, they wanted golf to maintain tradition. But post-COVID, younger generations are getting involved in the game. People like you and I, the average viewership has gone from 70-year-old guys who are deceased to 35-year-olds and younger who are intrigued in golf. The Waste Management bought on all of this drunken debauchery, but it also truly brought on way more golf fans because now you finally have a fun atmosphere to get around. That's the beauty of what golf has become. And LIV Golf was just exposing it further. I just think it was poorly executed from the start. It's finally gotten its legs, though.
Well, yeah, like part of the problem, looking back, I think it would be fun to do if you and I just did like a segment one time where it's like, what were things LIV could have done differently?
Absolutely.
You know, one of them, get a TV partner. Just do it. Like, that's like so basic. You know, like I get it. I think they were streaming on YouTube.
Which wasn't a bad strategy, though.
No, it's not a bad strategy. But here's the thing, though. What gives you more credibility? Partnering with Fox or streaming on YouTube?
Yeah, of course.
You know, like, come on. And especially because at the time, like, it made so much sense because Fox wasn't in the golf space anymore. So it just made total sense, and they didn't do it. There are a lot of things they could have done differently. I am happy, though, to see that we're finally getting to a point where guys on LIV are getting their flowers. You know, like they're able to like gain at the league, the players. It's like, yep, you guys are a professional golf tour, and we will reward you if you play well. Like, yeah.
And what makes all of this kind of come full circle, and I remember you sent me it on Instagram Golf Channel, put a post out about it, and I go, wait, like, Chad, is this real? Like, are we living in an alternate reality where Brandel Chamblee is finally like okay with LIV Golf? Apparently he played a round of golf with Trump, and he went on Golf Channel the following day and said after every hole, all Trump wanted to talk about was LIV Golf and how he's working to reunify the PGA Tour and LIV Golf, and is working with the PIF and Yasir Al-Rumayyan, and he was talking about how Yasir is really a good guy, and the reason why the PIF got into LIV in the first place was because they had these trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia and that like crescent of countries, they weren't putting the money into things outside of whatever was close to them, largely oil. They needed a way to diversify their product. And it started out, I don't know if you know this, but what originally started before LIV even launched, and this was the spring of my grad school year in 2021, bunch of my friends were soccer fans. They were talking about how the PIF wanted to create a super league, and they wanted to invite all the big programs in the world, Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool. They wanted to get PSG out in Paris, Bayern in Germany, Real Madrid and Barca out in Spain, get Ajax in the Netherlands, get the top teams in Greece and in China, and create a super league of like 32 teams, right? And no one bought into it because they were like, well, we're going to get removed from all of our domestic play. And at the end of the day, in soccer, I know you're not a huge soccer fan, but like domestic championships are a huge deal in soccer, particularly like in England, right? Like winning the FA Cup, which has been around since the 1800s, is a bigger deal than winning the Champions League to some teams. Whereas the Champions League is like basically the Club World Cup, essentially, different sort of context. But like in those cases, no one wanted to leave because very similar to golf, you're gonna lose your chance at majors. Now people have granted it never took off, but they pivoted to golf and it worked. And now we're here. And then you have guys, as we mentioned earlier, like Brandel Chamblee, who was so overly against LIV Golf and everything it stood for, largely because, like, I don't know if he was getting paid to do that. Like, you work for Golf Channel, they're a premier partner of the PGA Tour. Like, why would you positively speak about LIV Golf when in the beginning Jay Monahan made it very clear that you were going to get suspended and banned from the tour, and you would have owed fines if you wanted to come back or whatnot for any sort of reason. Obviously, things have changed, of course, but now Brandel came out on the show after playing with Trump and said that his opinion has shifted and that Yasir and the PIF are more of a partner to the future of golf. What's your take on Brandel's comments, and is it two-faced? Is it retreating on what he stood by? I'm still kind of wrapping my head around why he said it and why his stance changed. And I know we've said it in the past with a lot of guys like Rory who went back on his word and other guys, but like something doesn't seem right with what he's saying.
I do believe that opinions can change. I mean, Brooks said his opinion changed, and then he just jumped to LIV. Well, he said it after the fact, but after he jumped to LIV. But I don't necessarily have a problem with him saying it, just because I just feel like that would make me a hypocrite if I did have a problem with it, because it's just like, oh, like Rory changed his tune or tone, whatever. Brooks did, a lot of guys did. I mean, Steve, even you did. I remember you weren't like the biggest LIV fan, and you wanted guys to be suspended or like have to go through the Corn Ferry Tour again. And I just think the reason why we're talking about Brandel in this situation is because it's Brandel, because he's such a curmudgeon old fart.
Good words today.
Thank you. Like he really is just like, he loves to just poo-poo on everyone's parade. Like, this is just, and like he's always been that guy. And to be fair, like he's always leaned into it. And I will say, I feel like I'm one of a very small group of people. I have agreed with some of his points. I'm not talking about LIV, but just like he is one of the most thorough, I don't even know if I wouldn't call him a journalist, but like one of the most thorough TV analysts you will come on. Yeah. Like, I mean, I remember he and Frank Nopolo one time, I don't mean to start a story, but they were arguing. Like, it got a little bit uncomfortable live on Golf Channel, I believe at the PGA Championship. And they're going back and forth about Tiger, like why his back hurts and all this stuff. Brandel literally had the TrackMan numbers at his disposal, and he started reading them on live TV. Like, he is one of the most thorough people you will ever come across when it comes to just investigating stuff in the game of golf. But I also think because he said so many things that have made people just not like him, he's also not afraid to speak his mind, which I do think is great. We talked about that at the start of the show. I just think it's because of who he is, and because he has said things that can make people uncomfortable, that people have definitely disagreed with, that people are just like, oh, look at this guy. Like, now he's supporting LIV. Meanwhile, I would say if you took a poll, like in the past 3 years, just everyone in the game of golf, has your opinion of LIV changed? I would say the majority of people, they've had their opinions changed because of LIV, because they have seen like the benefits of having an a competing tour. Guys made a hell of a lot more money. There's now we're talking about a reunification anyway, which would make a lot of golf purists happy. There have actually been a lot of positives because of it. And it's all because of Brandel. That's really what it is. It's just because of who he is and his personality. And now he's starting to see, like, yeah, of course it's going to be a partnership. That's how I viewed it. Like, of course that's how that's how I viewed it. Yeah, they want to partner with the PGA Tour.
Yeah. No,
partner is in the word partnership.
The only the only thing I find interesting about this whole thing is that as of a week ago, like, and you know what? Again, I think I should be apologizing to Rory McIlroy too in this case, because I gave him so much shit for pulling the 180 when you had told me that you had heard from a anonymous source that he had been offered this mega deal to LIV Golf, and then and then like turned back immediately after on his word and said, "Oh, maybe we should get along with LIV." This all comes at a very convenient like merging point, right when we get word that Trump is pushing along a merger and an agreement. Brandel played with Trump last year and said how he was talking to him about Al Ramayan and PIF and so on. So like maybe it's just a matter of like this news comes out at the wrong time at a very convenient point where, oh, it totally makes sense now for Brandel Chamblee to get off of his super inflammatory campaign against LIV Golf to now support a reunification because there's now reports coming out that Trump's pushing this along and it's becoming more and more real. Maybe, again, it could very well have been a case that you work for Golf Channel, you're supposed to be so staunchly pro PGA Tour and anti-LIV Golf that you push this narrative, and now that it's coming back together, you're allowed to kind of give a different take. Maybe that's the case, and I don't want to push this, push a comment onto Brandel and make him sound like an asshole, because at the end of the day, no one deserves that from first jump. You should be able to give, and you're right, opinions do change. You're able to turn face and believe new things. But I do just think that a lot of this talk that Brandel made wasn't necessarily about LIV Golf itself. It was more about the idea that the PIF was this murderous regime and that they killed journalists and lacked human rights. And we already know that. Like, this has been established. We're, again, don't beat the dead horse on it. We know what they are. At the end of the day, his issue was in that, and it wasn't in the product of golf. Now, what he's saying is specifically to Yasir Al-Rumayyan, yeah, he's a partner. I mean, he's still probably one of the people that and again, don't want to put words in his mouth, but is probably involved in the lack of human rights violations in Saudi Arabia. After all, he runs the world's largest public investment fund in the world. Like, the money comes from somewhere. Like, whether or not it's blood money or otherwise, there's something shady going on in any realm in Saudi Arabia. Anyhow, I think his comments changing are being misconstrued too. And he even said it on his show. He's like, I've been misinforming people. I've been manipulating people into thinking this. But in reality, this is what the truth is. And Luke Elvey made a comment about how he's a hypocrite because he's turning back on his word and it's all convenient and it's great. But again, he never said anything bad about the tour. He said everything bad about the people running the tour. Now he's changing his opinion on that. And that, I think, is where the issue lies. If someone's a bad person, he's a bad person. Yeah, sure, he's a partner in all of this, but you should not take away from who they are as a person just because now they're getting more involved in this partnership that now you should be nice to them and buddy-buddy. That isn't your job. Your job is to give the facts and be objective about it. At the end of the day, he runs a public investment fund. Saudi Arabians do not care about the human rights of other people. But sure, LIV Golf exists. You can appreciate that. It's the same thing how everyone said, oh, it's blood money. I mean, the players don't think it's blood money. They're just taking money. They're going to play a sport. They're not involving themselves in the lack of rights to people. They don't care about that. That's why they never commented on it. And even then, look, I'm saying it too. Oh, Ben, show it off. Hello. Now,
I'm sweating.
I said this at the very beginning, how LIV Golf should be ashamed of themselves because it's all blood money and everything. And I went back on it and I said I was wrong. At the end of the day, LIV Golf, the players are there to play golf. They're not there to comment on human rights violations and stuff like that. I think Brandel's words are being very much misconstrued and not properly conveyed. And I just think it's a very divisive situation that we're in now. And people like Luke Elvey are going to get on him and call him a hypocrite. But I'm sure opinions have changed for a lot of people about LIV Golf and a lot of things that have happened about the PGA Tour. If you ask Luke Elvey right now, hey, like, what do you think of Jay Monahan? And he tells you, oh, he's great. He's lying to your face because everyone knows he sucks. Like, don't push an agenda because it's an agenda that you work with. Push the agenda that's objectively true. If the guy sucks, he sucks. If the guy's good, he's good. I think Brandel is finally coming around to the idea that while, yes, he's a bad person, he still is partnering with the golf world in order to make something better for everybody, and that's where he's at. Sorry. Again, I've been ranting a lot. I can't narrow down my words today. I have a lot of thoughts in my head.
So, well, I mean, that's just you every day, though. But
Yeah,
regardless,
sure.
I still love you, though. You're good, man. Anyway,
Thank you.
I have a theory. Okay,
Please.
So just hear me out. Look, Trump is not a politician; he's a businessman. That's been established. Okay.
Yeah.
So Trump probably just looked at Brandel and he was like, "Look, dude, here's the deal. They're gonna
We're doing this."
Yeah. Well, he's gonna say, "Hey, guess what, Brandel? When this merger happens, the PGA Tour is gonna make a lot more money. Okay, and guess what? You work for Golf Channel. They're a direct affiliate of the PGA Tour, which also means you're gonna make a lot more money. It is a win-win. I'm sure that's
Probably
probably
huge.
I would honestly I bet I would not be surprised if the conversation was that simple. Because remember, I've been saying this since the start. Money talks, you know, and I always thought it was very unfair to lump the golfers into the human rights aspect of it because they're golfers. You know, none of us support any of that. You know, the Saudis wanted to get into golf. That was their goal. And so they did it with they got a lot of high profile guys to come over. It didn't work. And so now they're trying. I wouldn't even say, honestly, maybe this was part of the plan all along because they were like, we got your stars. You are now overpaying. You can't afford a lot of these things. And you're losing sponsors. You're having a hard time finding parent sponsors to these tournaments. So you need us a hell of a lot more than really we need you because we have money for days, you know? And that's how powerful money can be because the PGA Tour, at the end of the day, they want a reunification because then it makes them, once again, the most powerful organization in the world. And so I really think, though, it was that simple. I really think it was just like Trump was just like, hey, dude, the PGA Tour is going to have so much money at their disposal. And you in turn are also going to make a lot more money as well. So
at the end of everything's a business decision.
Yeah,
And
it always comes down to money, man. It always look at Mike McCarthy isn't the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys anymore, literally because of money and years on the contract. It's that simple. Like these companies that end up not wanting to sponsor these tour events, it's all about money. They're like, no, the bottom line just doesn't add up. What we're giving and what we're receiving, it doesn't equate to anything that adds value to our company anymore. Sorry.
Think about it this way, right? You want to talk about how the almighty dollar talks. These guys went to LIV Golf because they knew there's guaranteed money on the table. Harold Varner said it the best. I'm not joining because I support LIV. I'm not joining because I believe in human rights violations and people like that. People that enter. No, I'm joining LIV Golf because my grandchildren's grandchildren can have all the money in the world and they'll never have to work a day in their life. Tom McKibben, I don't know if you heard the story, but Tom McKibben and Rory McIlroy grew up together, right? While Rory played at his home club, Tom McKibben was growing up playing there too. Tom's, I think, like 25 years old, right? He just earned his PGA Tour card through DP World Tour qualifying, right? And faced with a choice. Hey, you can go to the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, you can split your time, or you can go to LIV Golf. And what did he do? After speaking with Rory, and Rory said, oh, well, I think that Tom should come to the PGA Tour. He chose the LIV Golf route. Probably didn't make the kind of money that like Bryson and Brooks and everyone made, but he joined John Rahm's golf team. He finished 15th at their first event in Riyadh. Probably made more money than Thomas Dietrich won this week. And all of that for what? A business decision. And honestly, he made the right decision because once time comes where LIV Golf and the PGA Tour are coexisting. The PIF is giving money to the PGA Tour, and guys are trying to get on exemption lists to go to PGA Tour events. And next thing you know, they're going to have an Aon Swing 5 for LIV Golf to go to signature events, and all these things happen. Tom McKibbin's going to be $30 million or more richer when the next other guy who chose to take his PGA Tour card is struggling to finish 70th. That's the reality. So you're right. Money talks. These guys went. They're making it work. And if you look at their first event for LIV, pretty good leaderboard of a lot of former PGA Tour guys in the top 5. Moronk, Rahm, Munoz, Burmeister, Herbert, Sergio, Leishman, DeChambeau, Hatton, Surratt, a young gun. Like, lots of really good things happening for LIV Golf, and it's only really the start.
All right, I'm just going one last point.
Yeah.
So for all you listeners out there, guess what? If you're against, like, you know, the PGA Tour, because I'm sure there are people who are against the PGA Tour partnering with the Saudis at this point, because that's really just what it is, and that's what it's going to be. Just so you know, the people who you vote for are politicians. They deal with the Saudis. So the people you're voting for are also doing business with a group of people who do shitty and inhumane things. So it's very unfair to have ever lumped professional athletes and saying that they're the bad guys. So that was just kind of an aha moment that I had, but I do think it makes a lot of sense, and I think you'd agree. Like,
so I hate to put her on blast, but I kind of have to, because it works in the range of this conversation, and I don't mean to get political by any means, but I'm talking about student loan debt with my mom, and my mom's a Trump supporter, like most people in New York, on Long Island, very red part of the country. New York is solely a blue state because of Manhattan, and it's true. And we're talking about student loan debt and like Biden's SAVE program and all this stuff. And I'm currently going through the run of the mill situation of paying off student loan debt. Ethan, you will too one day. It sucks, but like, it's a natural part of life. At the end of the day, she's like, you know, it's crazy how like kids like you guys can barely afford to pay your student loan debt and like get a house now because costs are so high and inflation and all that stuff. Now, like, my mom isn't the most financially literate person in the world, and that's because she grew up in a generation where my grandparents didn't go to college, my mom didn't go to college. They weren't very financially literate because they didn't learn stocks and all that stuff, because they didn't come from a big, illustrious, white-collar family, where I'm the first person to go to college and the first person to learn how to access the stock market and a high-yield savings account. I introduced my mom to an HYSA. She was like, whoa. I'm like dumbfounded. I'm like, this is how life works. And I go, Ma, like, you do realize that you're complaining about all this stuff for me, but you voted for the person who's taking it away. Like, I might lose out on Biden's SAVE program because Trump's going to get rid of it. I might not get a first-time home buyer loan that was more than what I'm going to end up getting because Kamala Harris is going to give me more money, but Trump wants to give me less money. Or they wanted to forgive more student loan debt had it been a Democratic presidency continuation. Now Trump thinks that everyone should pay for their student loan debt because that's your own fault if you ended up in $500,000 in debt like some people are. Like, if you thought about me in November, you should have voted for the Democratic candidate because you know it would have helped me out. And she's like, well, that's you, not me. I go, yeah, but you're complaining for me. Like, I think a lot of the issues that have been strung from all this, and again, I mentioned this a year ago, but I might as well bring it up now, is this politicism of LIV and the PGA Tour, and it's the purists who believed in the PGA Tour and didn't want anything to change and hated the idea of rowdy 30-somethings going to golf events and getting drunk and having a grand old time, or exactly what LIV Golf stands for, golf but louder. Thought, oh, shorts on the golf course is terrible, or X, Y, and Z. And then you had the other side who supported LIV, kind of like the Democrats in the room, right? Who were like, we want to reform, we want to make new changes. and no one could ever agree to anything. There was never even a civil conversation. It was always, you suck if you support this, you're right if you support that. There was never a conversation. All of this got overly politicized. Now we're at a point where there's finally like cohesion, only because the people who are handling it, the big kids in the room, like Donald Trump and the president and the prime ministers and heads of the Saudi state, are coming together to like talk about it. Prior to that, it was the same politicized BS back and forth. Now, finally, the people who are the most involved are going to get involved and talk about it, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is great." Says a lot about our political system, right? We just need people who actually like can have conversations, and all of a sudden, our country would be in a way better state instead of the bullshit that it's in now. And again, I don't mean to get political, but I think everyone fucking sucks, and I think everybody needs to figure their shit out. And same thing goes for everybody who supported the PGA versus LIV. Everyone's now finally coming together or somewhat changing face, because now things are going to finally change. Everyone's a hypocrite. Everyone's wrong. Brandel's wrong. Rory's wrong. I'm wrong. You're wrong. Everyone who had an opinion at one point or another who turned face, we're all hypocrites. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a good rant. I like that.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's just got to come to an agreement and understand that we're all different. We all have our own thing. God, I'm like ending racism too. Like everything that you could ever think about: racism, geopolitical situations, socioeconomic statuses. Everything can be resolved if people just have a conversation and can talk about it. People who hated the TGL too, they're like, dude, this isn't gonna work. It's just another way for people to watch golf, consume it, enjoy it.
I was in that crowd. That I was stupid. I thought it wasn't gonna work, and I was wrong. But you know what? Here's the thing that I think, look, people have opinions, and when it comes, I'm just looking at it from the golf perspective right now, like not like society's problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but at the end, like when it comes to the golf part, everyone's gonna have their opinions, and it's the hypocrisy of just society. It is how people get uncomfortable when there's change, even when it's for the good. Mm-hmm. It's like when someone's in a relationship and they're just like, I'm fucking miserable. I want to get out of this relationship. Yet they're both miserable. Yet they're still dating or still together for the next 5 years because it's more convenient and it's more comfortable. That's why. Because it's called ripping the Band-Aid off. Like LIV forced everyone in golf to rip the Band-Aid off. Like, hey, guess what? Like, your product is stale and guys are going to make so much money. Like, it's going to be generational. It really,
exactly.
Think about it. There were not that many golfers who really had generational wealth. Yes, like the top 20 golfers in the world, probably. Yeah. Top 50. Yeah, maybe. But at the end of the day now, like you go to LIV, and if you have someone who is like halfway competent running managing your money, 4 years on LIV, someone who's halfway competent, you're set. You're good. Yeah. It's not that difficult. And I just think at the end of the day, people, their opinions are always going to change because there's always going to be ebb and flow to situations like this. Things are going to be presented. Ideas are going to be presented. Some might work, some might not. Some might get shot down. Some might be accepted. Exactly. And I think at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, that's why I'm not going to get on Brandel just because like I do have, like I said, he's a curmudgeon old fart, okay, who could be a huge pain in the ass and a rainy cloud on a sunny day. Okay, but he does bring up a lot of valid points. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that Trump sat there and he was like, Brandel, you're going to make so much more money. It's going to be huge. I guarantee you it's probably that simple, because that's literally what most people care about is money. Not me, because money doesn't buy you happiness. Money buys you a lot of cool shit that makes you forget how unhappy you are for a little while. Okay.
Great quote.
How does that put that
Word
on
up.
a shirt? KB, put that on a shirt. Okay, with my face on the back. But at the look,
the last thing that I want is your face on a shirt. But anyways, I'm sorry. I love you to death, but to have your face plastered to the back of a shirt would be horrifying.
Like this?
I would die. Sorry, I cut you off. You were saying?
No, that's all I have to say. I think we should. Yeah. I think we've beat the dead horse enough with this one. We should probably. Yeah.
At the end of the day, have a conversation, talk about it, figure shit out, come to an agreement, and just let shit play out. If you have an idea, let it run. And if it fails, it fails. Get used to failing because it happens a lot.
Get in the Hole is brought to you by PHI Apparel Company, our incredible merch partners. PHI Apparel Co. provides unique designs and high-quality clothing from t-shirts to hoodies for every golfer around. With their original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out on the course, the driving range, or at the 19th hole. Go to phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND at checkout for 10% off any order. That's code UNDERGROUND at phiapparel.co and grab exclusive Get in the Hole podcast merch and support your favorite golfers.
This episode of Get in the Hole is brought to you by our friends over at Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the industry. Founded on Long Island and rep by some of the biggest personalities in sports, including Chris Hogan, Kyle Harrison, John Jay, and Paige Spiranek, Tomahawk Shades is guaranteed to keep you looking fresh from the first hole to the 18th green and, of course, the 19th hole as well. Head to TomahawkShades.com or download the Tomahawk Shades app on the App Store or Google Play Store and browse their selection of sunglasses, blue light plus glasses, and prescription lenses, and be sure to use code USP for 25% off your next order at TomahawkShades.com. So Kay went to Pilates and she texted me. She goes, "I'm coming home. You're done with the show, right?"
Oh God, no, we're not even close.
That's a fucking funny joke. We're only halfway through this thing. Have some shout outs. Brought to you by our friends over at Acorn Hills. I cannot speak as highly enough about Nate every single week. My boy Nate Hearn actually starting his grad season at I think it's Mount Aloysius University out in the Pittsburgh area. Great guy, awesome golfer, even better clothing. I just bought myself an awesome quarter zip for the spring season. Acorn Hills is changing clothing through conservation. Like I had mentioned, Nate started his whole career out of a dorm room at his college in Western PA, and what has grown from it, from a small sapling to a enormous sequoia, a awesome brand over at Acorn Hills dedicated to supporting environmental efforts by offering biodegradable clothing tags and packaging recycled materials. For every dollar spent, the National Forest Foundation will plant a seedling to promote afforestation across our great land. And of course, in support of those out in Los Angeles, a lot of work being done to those wildfires out in the Palisades. So be sure to support not only Acorn Hills, but the National Forest Foundation, all the support groups that are involved out in LA, and get in on some Acorn Hills action. Use code GITH15 for 15% off your next order at acornhillsco.com and look your best from the ground up. We started off with a big shout out to Thomas Dietrich, the first Belgian. I did not know this, and this is a crazy stat. We had Matthew Pavon was the first Frenchman to win last year. Now we've got Thomas Dietrich, the first Belgian to win on the PGA Tour. He notched his first career victory at the Waste Management this week. Everyone joked. They were like, oh, here we go. 54-hole leader. He's going to choke job this one out. Only made 4 straight birdies in his last 4 holes to clinch a 7-stroke win. It's the largest margin of victory at the Waste Management since 2006. Ben, I hope you're not looking at the notes right now. Do you remember the last guy to have a 7-stroke win at the Waste Management? And if you're looking at the notes, just tell me, because his name is on there.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Don't
happened at the 06 Waste Management.
Oh well, you just fucked it up. Oh, damn it, man. Okay. JB Holmes won that year.
Yeah, with JB Holmes.
Damn it, dude. I didn't mean that.
I didn't think giving you the year was going to blow that one up so easy.
Well, no, because he won that in like the 2000s. I think twice. I think in 06 and 08. Initially, because for some reason I was thinking of Kyle Stanley, but it was Kyle Stanley came back from 7 shots down going into the final round. So, but I was like, no, not him. When I heard win by 7, yeah, JB. He was like really like one of like the first bombers on the tour. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he's doing now, but he was so exciting to watch.
Trying to find that leaderboard from long ago. Try and see what names were popping up. It's so hard to find like those leaderboards from forever ago. Or actually, can
Ethan,
I find
who won the 2008 Waste Management Phoenix Open? I said it was JB Holmes again. I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Wow, dude, the leaderboard, just some names to throw out from the 06 Waste Management. No, Holmes won.
Yeah, it was JB Holmes.
There you go. Good job. JB Holmes won the 06 Waste Management at 21 under par. The names immediately after him: Camilo Villegas at 14 under, Ryan Palmer, JJ Henry, Stephen Lowry, Scott Verplank, Phil, Justin Leonard, Dean Wilson. Like these are names that like haven't heard in forever. Stuart Sink finished 15th. He was like 29. VJ finished top 20. Ben Curtis finished 20th. Jeff Ogilvy, Trevor Immelman, Lucas Glover, all T20. Crazy to think like Lucas Glover is like playing like some of his best golf that he has in a long time, and yet he was finishing top 20 of the Waste Management in like 06 with VJ. Like it's crazy to think about.
I met Lucas about a month ago. Nice guy.
Yeah. I think you mentioned that he cool guy, right?
Oh, super chill. I didn't tell him that I watched him win the 2009 U.S. Open because I didn't want him to feel old. I was like, that might make him feel kind of old. I don't know if I want. That's the first impression I want to make. Lucas Glover.
Meanwhile, I woke up on my birthday last week and I felt like crap. I don't know why. And like I got up and I like felt like I pulled my back. I call my mom and I go, "Mom, I'm getting old." She goes, "Bitch, you're 27. I'm 59." I was like, "Oh, Mom, God bless you."
Okay. Anyway, I did get you a birthday present, by the way. You're gonna love it.
I'm excited.
Total gag gift. Oh, awesome. It's the thought that counts.
It is.
Shout out to Will Chandler, the final Waste Management Monday qualifier ever. Well, Monday qualifier ever. Completed a magical run this week that featured not just his first top 10 on tour, but his first made cut in his 3rd career start. Highlight of the week, beating the world number 1 by 6 strokes on Sunday. The finish earns his way into the Mexico Open in a couple weeks. So that's right. If you're a Monday qualifier, you finish top 10. You get into the next event. So, and that happens to be because you can't get into the elevated event, which is honestly kind of a shame. Regardless, though, he gets into another tour event. So, and I think it's highlights how much of a shame it is that we're doing away with those. So
Ryan French was having a field day about how sad it is, and he made. I didn't know if it ever happened, but. He pled and was begging for people to like tweet at Scotty Scheffler. He was like, whatever you do, just like talk to Will. Be like, how did your career, how did you get to this point? Like the guy is in his late 20s, early 30s, had to literally fight his way to get here on Monday, got to the golf course late on Tuesday because there was no slots available for him to practice. So he had to go as one of the last guys out. Like the fact that he managed to finish so high, it brings back the thoughts, and granted he wasn't on Monday Q, but like how Nick Dunlap won the Amex, how like it's so unprecedented, and you very rarely see guys who Monday Q finish A as winners, or B just like as high as he did to finish 6th in the event is just wildly impressive. So awesome stuff for Will Chandler. Hopefully, when he plays at the Mexico Open, not always the biggest field. So hopefully a good chance for him to get another big finish, make the cut for a second straight week, and hopefully that'll get him some more exemptions for later on in the year. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
But while Will Chandler had a great week, I want to give two other big shout outs to both Daniel Berger and Michael Kim. Two guys who very different scenarios and very different career arcs so far to this point, and managed to go balls to the wall at the Waste Management, finish in the top three. Daniel Berger, who, by the way, like when I first got into golf, in like watching golf more so, right when the show started in like late 2021, like right around the restart, I'll never forget watching the restart. The first event was, I think it was the Charles Schwab at Colonial, right? And it was Daniel Berger and Colin Morikawa in a playoff. And Colin missed the putt, lipped out. Berger won the event. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to follow Daniel Berger. He seems like a really great golfer. Lo and behold, about a year and a half later, he has this like stress fracture in his back and is out for 18 months recovering and having missteps and mishaps. He won, I think, the Honda, and just like not, and immediately after his win at the Honda, that was when the back started to persist. He's 31 years old now. He has his third top 10 finish in his last 10 starts, dating back to the Sanderson Farm last October. Prior to that, he hadn't recorded a top 5 in a regular season event, not including the fall, of course, since the Memorial in June 2022. So he won the Honda. A few weeks later, finished top 5 at Memorial. That was the same year that I believe Cantlay won and Rahm had withdrawn. So in a loaded field there, finished top 5 and just wasn't able to get back to the course now. Between him and Harris English, two of the best like comeback from injury stories. English also dealt with a back injury and a hand injury, and now Berger's back as well. Michael Kim, on the other hand, who has been a tour grinder for years. Not his first T5 of the season. It's his first top 5 finish since the Shriners back in October. By the way, Michael Kim's one of the best social media followers you can get on Instagram and Twitter. He has so many great insights into what the grinder on tour goes through and what he sees, how he participates and preps for weeks. So definitely give Michael Kim a follow. Both of them jumped over 60 spots respectively in the Aon Swing 5. They get a start this week at the Genesis at Torrey Pines. So congratulations to Dan. Congratulations to Michael Kim. Two really big time names, two big time starts to get into their first signature event ever for both of them.
Shout out to the TV ratings. Nielsen reported that their TV viewership for the golf slate and LIV season debut with Fox in Riyadh averaged 12,000 viewers on FS2, while this past week's TGL match saw 544,000 average viewers. For reference, per Rick Golf's on Twitter, the American Cornhole League averaged over 50,000 viewers this week on their personal channel across the world. Gosh, that's not a good look.
Yeah. So I want to give some background on this.
Note, these ratings are not just for U.S. These ratings are just for U.S. audiences. There is likely more for international, but still a staggering number. Also, FS2 typically does get the least viewership amongst Fox channels.
Yeah. So I actually didn't want you to say those last two points, but it's fine. That's kind of exactly what I wanted to mention. This is going back to this whole like LIV Golf thing and how like you could point to the ratings being crap and they're like, oh, like the product is it good? First of all, they're competing with arguably the biggest regular season tournament of the year that isn't the Players and isn't a major. So when you look at it from that lens, it's an incredible challenge to overcome. Also, I don't know why boo on Fox for putting them on FS2. That's like putting a primetime basketball game for Duke on like ESPNU. Like, why the fuck would you do that? There was nothing else showing on a Saturday and Friday for Fox during the 10 to 3 p.m. slot. So 12,000 viewers on FS2 is actually kind of like standard from what they like usually get. They usually don't get a ton. We don't have the international numbers. There isn't a system like Nielsen that measures that kind of stuff, or at least to my knowledge, out in Europe and Asia, just because it's so hard to gather all that data. But I'm sure as an international game like LIV Golf is, with more international talent than like American per se, there's definitely more viewership numbers that are out there. Also, that's solely from Fox, not from the LIV Golf app or anything else. So that number is probably deflated, if anything. Yeah, okay, 50,000 viewers for the ACL. They have their own dedicated channel on like DirecTV, believe it or not. So like they actually have a 24/7 showing of cornhole. So yeah, maybe a event's peaking at a higher rate, but I guarantee you there's more viewership for the LIV Golf slate compared to that. But comparatively, right, TGL had like 544,000 views. I don't think LIV will ever touch that. However, I do think that if you look at their schedule and the way LIV is preparing the year, there's going to be weeks where LIV actually may have a better viewership, in my opinion, than the PGA Tour. And I think it starts the first time I think that happens is going to be, well, when the PGA Tour is playing the Rocket Mortgage, I believe LIV is going to be playing in Dallas. And I believe there's another event the same week as the Valero in San Antonio where they might be able to get better viewership. That's going to be when they're playing in Doral in Miami. So, in my opinion, like Doral, thank you. LIV is going to be able to eclipse better numbers. I think a lot of their numbers is more international numbers that we just don't have on hand than it is the 12,000 American viewers that are viewing solely on FS2 at any given moment from Friday to Sunday.
Interesting. Okay.
So people always kind of get the ratings all like messed up and wrong. They're like, oh, like they average this many. Yeah, but they probably peaked at a higher number, most likely. But there's a lot of opportunity for LIV to grow on that. Our happy birthday shout outs. They're short and they're sweet. Want to give a shout out for her 30th birthday to Lexi Thompson. I actually didn't even realize this. She retired earlier this year from like full-time golf. And I actually thought she was older. That sounds kind of rude to say, but only 30 years old. She turned pro at 12 years old. She became the youngest at the time major champion at only 19 years old. She's won a Junior Solheim Cup, a Junior Ryder Cup, a Curtis Cup in 2010. She's a 3-time Solheim Cup winner in 15, 17, and 2024. She won the International Crown in 2016. A incredible career from a golfer who's retiring full-time from full-time golf at only 30. It's crazy how young LPGA golfers always like start their careers. But awesome. Happy 30th birthday to Lexi Thompson, who celebrates her 30th today. Pair of fun birthdays on February 15th, on Saturday this week. Pat Reed and Kevin Kisner, the two complete opposite people, happen to share a birthday, which I think is tremendous.
It might have been. I don't think Patrick Reed's old enough. I was going to say they might have been teammates in college, but actually I don't think so. I think Kisner's too old to be Patrick Reed's teammate.
Who was the guy that Patrick Reed stole from at Georgia?
I don't know. I could look it up right now.
Yeah, because Kisner said. I think Kisner might have said like something, but yeah, like he was suspended. He was cheating. I'm trying to find.
Well, yeah,
numbers.
He stole a teammate's watch when he was in college. He used to cheat in college. His teammates used to root against him at tournaments. Can you imagine?
I'm trying to find it. When did you go to college? Probably like the early 2000s, right? Because the other guy is a relevant golfer now, so it has to be somebody who's been around the block. And unfortunately, you can only get up to the 2016 roster for Georgia. Which, by the way, Will Chandler was on that 2016 Georgia team.
So he 2008, 2009 was his freshman year at Georgia.
Okay. Who did he steal?
He went to Augusta.
Let's see if we have anything that was that's relevant. Actually, I just saw this. Patrick Reed in 2009 pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge of underage drinking and possession of fake ID while attending the University of Georgia. As part of his sentence, he was fined, placed on probation, and ordered to complete 60 hours of community service, which he never completed. Attaboy, Pat. Attaboy. Oh my God. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I'm dying to know who he stole from because Kevin Kisner's definitely a little bit older, but for some reason, I'm thinking it was Harris English because they're similar in age.
Oh gosh.
But I could very well be wrong on that. Oh, also, KB wants us to shout out Cooper DeJean and Saquon Barkley's birthday from yesterday in their Super Bowl route. So congrats to Saquon and Cooper DeJean for actually Cooper DeJean is not a safety. No, he's not. He is in fact a cornerback, and him and Reed Blankenship are the two exciting whites of the world. All right, let's get into some chatter around the Genesis Invitational this week. But before we mention anything about the Genesis this week, you know where you can watch the Genesis this weekend, Ben?
Nope.
You can watch it on CBS and on Paramount Plus. Do not miss out on the third signature event of the year, the Genesis Invitational this weekend at Torrey Pines. Stream the PGA Tour on CBS and watch the third and final rounds live on Saturday, February 15th and Sunday, February 16th with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan as Tiger Woods hosts his tournament and an elite group of players at this special event for the first time ever at Torrey Pines while the Genesis is away due to the LA wildfires. This is the destination for golf fans. Stream the PGA Tour on CBS Live with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. Get started today and sign up with our code in the description. Some notes and news coming into the Genesis this week. A couple of notable withdrawals include Chris Kirk. He is out for a withdrawal. Mark Hubbard is in. Tiger was supposed to make his debut for the 2025 season. He will not be making it due to the unfortunate situation. His mother passed away this week. So we first of all give our condolences to the Woods family. He said it best. His mother was a shining beacon in his life. She was there week 1 for the TGL. She was yelling at Tiger week 2 when he made his debut, saying like, shoot the ball better. And you could hear Tiger like yelling back at his mom, like, come on, Ma, I'm doing my best here. He said it best. She was a shining light in his life and was one of the reasons why, in the face of doubt, he always kept on going forward. So our condolences to the Woods family. He said going into this week, he just simply isn't ready to tee it up. I believe she only passed away about 3-4 days ago. So it's still very new for him. He probably still is going through funeral arrangements and so on. So he will be out this week. So sponsor exemptions joining the full Ricky Fowler, Minwoo Lee, Jordan Spieth, who had a really good week last week. Hopefully you can keep things going. Maybe we've seen the turnaround of Jordan Spieth. We talk about that one later.
I'm not going to let you stop. Just stop before you make another stupid.
Hear me out. Hear me out.
No, I'm not. I don't want to hear anything.
No, his swing coach said
of bad takes.
His swing coach said this is the best that he's felt and looked pre-tournament, and he had a tremendous week. He was lacing drives and wasn't even looking at where it went. He just knew it was in the middle of the fairway. It's 1 week. Anything's possible, but I'm hoping Jordan gets back to his old stuff. Also, Gary Woodland will be a sponsor exemption in this week. The Aon Swing 5, the guys getting their stake in. I had already mentioned Daniel Berger and Michael Kim. Sam Stevens, JJ Spawn, and Andrew Novak will enter the field, a part of the Aon Swing 5. And I don't know if you know this, but every single Genesis Invitational, there is the Charles Seaford exemption, which is given out by Tiger to a specific player in order to grow diversity in the game. I was going through the list of all the players who were in the field this week, and I was specifically looking for that. And at first, I thought the PGA Tour made a mistake on the call sheet, and it said Danny List. And I go, Danny isn't Luke. That's a really weird, like bad spelling mistake. Turns out Danny List, he had the plus next to his name. So after some further digging, he is our Charles Seaford exemption of the week. In the past, guys like the aforementioned JJ Spawn, HV3, Cam Champ, Joseph Bromlett, all have been exemptions into this event and have gone on to have great careers. Danny List, a little background info on him that I discovered doing some of my pre-show research. So he's making his PGA Tour debut this week. He is of Ghana descent and has been playing since he was 3 years old. He won his first tournament in Ghana at 7. He was a Euro Junior champion at 14 and turned pro after 1 year at the University of Washington. He moved to a boarding prep school in England at the age of 13 and honed his skill there. Went to Washington for 1 year and turned pro. He suffered a stress fracture back in his back in 2023 in his back, but earned his DP World Tour card this year in 2024 after battling back from a almost 13-month-long recovery. So big moves for Danny List. He'll make his tour debut this week playing under the Australian flag. So best of luck to Danny List in his maiden tour event. And apparently it's going to be a doozy at Torrey Pines. I saw a video from Ben Griffin. The rough is like US Open level thick. Like it was pretty thick a few weeks ago. They literally just didn't mow it for 3 weeks. They were like, well, it's good now. It's going to get even worse now. Worse for the Genesis. So it's going to be a doozy of a week for a lot of these guys. Not a lot of guys teeing it up this week played a few weeks ago. If you remember, the flu-like symptoms that were going around in San Diego and Torrey Pines led to a Ludwig Oberg withdrawal. Ashley Batia didn't play. Xander didn't play. There was probably like 13 or 14 different guys that can go and find the list. But a lot of those names will be teeing it up this week, of course, in the signature event. And all eyes will be on Torrey Pines as it hosts first Genesis Invitational while Riviera is undergoing basically blocking out the LA wildfires. Let's get right into our beer money picks of the week, brought to you by Kenwood Beer as we get ready for another great Genesis Invitational week at Torrey Pines. And of course, who else but to get the show going with Kenwood Beer. I had a Kenny Gainwell anytime touchdown. It did not cash. However, Kenny Pickett did become the third player in the game to throw a pass. So I won my ass $50 on a Kenny Pickett 0-for-1 passing display. And with that, I celebrated with what else but a Kenwood beer to have a good time. Kenny's the routine choice of folks who want a balanced, flavorful, no-frills beer. That's right for any occasion and is right for any player on the Philadelphia Eagles named Kenny or otherwise. Only 120 calories and 8 grams of carbs, so called the best light beer they've ever had. We just say you can't beat the original. Head to kenwoodbeer.com. Use the Kenny tracker to find where you can get your hands on some ice-cold, refreshing Kennys from your favorite liquor stores in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware, as well as the Wells Fargo Center and beyond. That's 21 years in order to consume. And, of course, please drink responsibly. Also, please bet responsibly with us. Ben, last week, or this past week, Ofer from you and a Jordan Spieth top 20 puts me over the top for my first lead since August. It's big time. The momentum is riding high. We lead with you, a top 20 at the Genesis.
You know, this seems to me like we're looking at some sort of US Open setup. And so I was just looking at guys who would have value, who are good ball strikers, who have maybe won a US Open. I'm hammering Lucas Glover for a top 20.
I dig.
Hell yeah.
I dig big time. Top 20 for me. Let's start the betting off hot. At the Genesis Invitational. I'm trying to. All right. So, okay. Of course, the Genesis being played at Riviera. It's a different kind of course history, but like you said, U.S. Open kind of feel to this sort of event. Being that, of course, it's Tiger's event. It's a big time stage. It's probably one of the best signature events because, of course, it's one of the big three with Arnie's tournament and Jack's. Who has great success in Torrey Pines, but Tony Finau at this golf course. Dating back to 2017, Tony's finished 4th, 6th, 3 times, 2nd, and 9th. And one of his only missed cuts at this event happened to be at that U.S. Open. So conditions were a little bit lighter when he finished top 10 all those years, but he has plenty of course history here, and I think that's enough, even with the tough conditions, in order to make it out at plus 200. Tony Finau, top 20. Top 10, who you got?
Top 10 for me, I'm going to go with Sepp Straka. He's gotten off to a really good start this year. Hasn't finished outside the top 30. He went 15th, tied for 15th, tied for 30th. A win at the Amex, tied for 7th at Pebble Beach, and solo 15th last week at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. He's one of the hottest players in golf right now. And yeah, I like his odds for a top 10 finish this week.
There we go. Well, love to see it. Top 10 for me. I'm going to go with trying to find other guys who have really good course history at this track. He always plays well in California, so I think that there's a good opportunity here for him to thrive. I feel like guys who maybe didn't play well the first go around at Torrey might play well in the second go around. In which case, I'm going to go with Jason Day. He finished 32nd only a couple of weeks ago, but he's not only won at Torrey twice in his career, he's finished top 10 3 other times. So a lot of course history here for Jason Day. I'll ride that for a top 10 at plus 300. Top 5.
Like I said, we're looking at guys who just right now, if I'm looking for a top 5 in conditions like this, you kind of want someone who does everything well. And we've talked about him as the guy, the ultimate player who like does everything just well. Patrick Cantlay for me. I'm going to go with him for a top 5. Not a weakness in his game. He's strong from tee to green, and I think that's the type of player that you want this week.
Yeah, for me, top 5. Who do I like here? Interesting. I'm gonna go with the guy who has not played here very often, actually, but whenever he has played here, he's played tremendous golf. I want to make sure the odds here are decent before I spit this take out. But let's see where he's at this week. The odds actually aren't tremendous. Yeah, no, they're still decent. Plus 200. I'm gonna go with Rory McIlroy for a top 5. He only has 4 starts here, I think, dating back to 2015, and all of them came in the COVID era, 2019 to 2021. But he's finished here 5th, 3rd, 16th, and he finished 7th at the U.S. Open. If we're gonna have very similar conditions to what we saw at the U.S. Open, I can't see a instance where he does not have a strong week here at Torrey Pines, particularly after winning a really tough, challenging week at Pebble. So I'll go Rory for top 5. Your gimme pick this week.
I'm going with Byung-Hun An for a top 20. I think the value is good there. And he's, again, overall just a very solid player. I don't know what the wind conditions are going to be like this week at Torrey. They could be pretty treacherous, but he's a guy that knows how to golf his ball. And so, honestly, I would not be surprised if he actually ended up winning a couple times this year. So I like Ben on.
I'm going to go with Sungjae Im. Also, really good course history here in particular. In his last, let me make sure that I'm accurate here. In his last 4 events at Torrey Pines, 6th, 4th, a missed cut, and a 4th place finish here at Torrey just a few weeks ago. I'm going to go Sungjae top 20. You can get him a basically even money at minus 105. So it's literally a perfect $10 to win $10. It's a layup play for someone who has great course history at this track. Previously to that, though, did not have great course history, but something has turned around over the last 3-4 years, which is also kind of when Sungjae's kind of hit his heyday stride starting in 2020. So I'll ride with Sungjae Im. Your winning pick of the Genesis.
Well, I'm going to go with Hideki Matsuyama. I think based off the value alone, I don't want to mess this up. He's plus 2,200 to win. I personally believe that with Rory winning a couple weeks ago, Colin Morikawa, I trust Hideki's high end more than Colin right now, based on what we've seen out of Colin the last couple of years. Although he's been very consistent, he hasn't really put it all together. And then for just odds sake, since someone on this podcast said I had a layup pick last week when I picked Scotty Scheffler, so I'm going with Hideki at plus 2,200.
Scotty was what, like plus 200?
No, he's like plus 300 versus the same.
And the next guy was 12 to 1?
Whatever. You've done that before. Hypocrite.
Only when it's obliviously obvious to pick them. Let's see. Who do I take to win here? I'm gonna go with a very out there pick. It's been the year of the returning champion on the PGA Tour. We've seen it outside of last week, where it's a first time winner. We've seen a lot of repeat winners and guys who have had to fight their way back to the title. Harris English won here only a couple of weeks ago, and he battled back from some big time injuries. But I think that when you look at who's going to win this week, it's going to take a very different player. And I think a player who plays well at Torrey Pines also plays well at Pebble Beach. You don't have to necessarily hit it incredibly far. We've seen guys win the Farmers in the past, like Max Homa, who hits it well, but hits it a little bit erratic. The rough's going to be really challenging this week. Who had a really strong performance when they won here in the past, but also finished really well at the U.S. Open when it came around to here. I'm going to go with Justin Rose to win at Torrey Pines. He hasn't won here. His last win at Torrey Pines came in 2019. But again, great track record, top tens all over the place. Has not had the same kind of form recently. He actually missed the cut at Torrey Pines the last go around, but following that event at Torrey Pines, did not go and play the following week. So he's been just in San Diego practicing on course and getting ready for the week. He sits at a staggering, let me find the number. Oh my goodness. He is way down the odds board. Justin Rose. Oh my God, I'm still scrolling. Oh my God, 120-1. Crazy number. I'll take Justin Rose to win at Torrey Pines. Final thoughts, Ben, before we go.
Great episode.
Great episode.
A lot.
Yeah, great debate, great chatter. I know KB's excited about the Eagles. I'm not gonna bring him into the show though, because he'll rant for hours on end. I see him like warming the hands up like he's about to go scheme. That's gonna do it. That's gonna do it for us here. Episode 191 of the Getting the Whole podcast. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe on all of our social medias at Getting the Whole Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Be sure to follow us. Like and comment on all of our posts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Leave those 5-star ratings. They help big time for the engagement. Shout out to our sponsors, 47 Brand and Paramount. You can find their description links in our podcast links, as well as Acorn Hills and Kenwood Beer. And of course, Underground Sports Philadelphia, the home of everything Getting the Whole, plus all of our other great shows, including our Underground Circuit team, Top Bins, and OTB. You can get all that you need there at Underground Sports PHI. We've eclipsed the 1,000 subscriber mark. Now it's only time to go to the moon from here. Our, 6th birthday came around on February 7th, and we're 7th, and we're only getting better. Be sure to go and follow us, subscribe to the future of the industry at Underground Sports Philadelphia on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and the like. Once again, episode 191 of Getting the Whole. That's been Pirro, Ethan, Hogan. I'm Steve McAvoy. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to Getting the Whole, the official golf podcast of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Catch us every week wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and be sure to like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Getting the Whole Pod, and follow Underground Sports Philadelphia at Underground PHI. We'll see you next time. And remember, get in the hole!